In the heart of Constantine, Michigan, a fierce and unbreakable spirit has burned brightly for nearly a century. This is a story intact in sweat and determination, in victory and defeat. On the scarce ground of Sweetland Stadium, it is here that the essence of our town is captured. A place where football is more than just a game. It is a way of life. From the humble beginnings in 1924, Constantine has been a beacon of hope and pride. Teams that knew the taste of perfection and set a standard of excellence that still echoes through time. As the years pass, the torch was carried by giants. These giants of dominance transformed our program into a powerhouse, leading us to the heights of a state championship and putting our name in the annals of greatness under their command. The legacy of Constantine football continues. The roar of the crowd, the clash of the helmets, support of the community. All of this reminds us that this is more than just a sport. It's our history. And our future. In the 1920s, Constantine football was just getting started. But nobody knew back then what kind of legacy and tradition Constantine football would withhold. But one man by the name of George Sweetland knew that the football program and the community around this town was special.
You know, Doc Sweetland was one of those guys that was going to get involved in the community, whatever it took. Well, it turns out that him and Bob Weir, there was a piece of land, which is where Sweetland Stadium is now. That whole tract of land back behind there was in an estate. And those two guys bought that land and then gave it to the school. So that was nice of them. They didn't have to do that, but they did. But Doc Sweetland, you know, he brought in an engineer. He laid the thing out the way it needed to be laid out. And then it was a matter of really moving dirt. Yeah, there's a lot of dirt to move. Because he wanted 14-foot high bank around that stadium. Farmers, people in the community, I mean, everybody pitched in wherever they could. And Doc did he did have people who couldn't afford to pay their medical bills work it off at the stadium. You know, he didn't have to do that, but he did it. The stadium was definitely a community effort, without a question. But the driving force was Doc Sweetland. I mean, he was the one making it happen. So he put his whole heart and soul into that, building that stadium. And so people who boo-hoo and or why don't we just take the banks down? Or no, we're not going to do that. I mean, not while I'm alive anyway. We're going to make damn sure that doesn't happen.
So Sweetland to me means a lot. It's more than just our home field. It's a piece of you when you play on it. So 3 of my uncles played here. My great uncle played here. It's a long family tradition that we have.
We have 2,000 people in the village. 2,500 to 3,000 are at a football game on Friday. Where do they all come from? I'm not sure.
Sweetland, for one, on a Friday night is packed. You know, packed to the brim, standing room only, it feels like. You know, you have people up on the hills. You have people standing along the fence. And, you know, more importantly, you have people driving from other schools. You know, if you're in a playoff game on a Saturday, you look over on the sideline and you see kids from White Pigeon, you see kids from Centerville. Sometimes you'll even see kids from, you know, upper north in Kalamazoo come down and watch you. It's not just the village. People travel from all over to watch our games, and that's special. You know, you have a community that's bringing other communities together.
So Sweetland Stadium became a well-known place, at least in Southwest Michigan. People knew about Sweetland Stadium and what had gone on here, you know. And I just think that history and then those feelings, I always tried to share that when I was coaching with players. I want you to know about this place. I want you to understand that this is kind of special.
Dr. Sweetland didn't just build a football field. He built a home, somewhere where people could go to share a laugh, a cheer. What Dr. Sweetland did was build a community.
Growing up in this small community, you looked up to those guys like they were your heroes. And I actually, in the '94 year, I had this photo of me and my mom in the newspaper here, and she put "Born to be a Falcon" because that's kind of exactly what it was. There I was 2 years old with my mom in the paper at a football game on the '94 run.
Community for Constantine is just great. Whether it's everybody hanging signs in their front yards, buses are coming back into towns after big games and they're honking their horns, and people are outside their house waving.
So a big thing with Constantine football would be the stability. I grew up without a father. With the stability, you know, you have dads of other players that give you that father-like feeling, you know, that come to you and tell you, you know, Dylan, I watched how you played tonight, and this is stuff that I think you can work on. And the moms, you know, the moms that would make you feel like they're your own moms, you know, they feed you, you know, playoffs, you get pillowcases made for you, you get pictures printed off, put on your lockers, and just the whole feeling of Constantine as a whole, the community, the feeling of just as almost one whole family. There's also another thing with Constantine football that's totally different and that sets us apart from everybody else is who do you have or know that shoots a cannon off?
Wow! So anyway,
I retired in 2004, and that's when the cannon was built. You couldn't ask for anything more successful than Constantine football has been through all the years that I've been involved. Then, of course, Coach Griff took over, and I worked through him in a chain crew, with a chain crew, and the chain crew was pretty much turned over. Like I said, I started in '93, so this will be my 31st year, and I'm senior to all them other young guys that are doing it, and they're really good. Those guys are really good. So the coaches never forget us. In other words, because of our contribution. And Coach Griff has often spoke about parents that had players go through the system and are still involved. Well, I happen to be one of them, but I don't do that because of notoriety. I do it because I love it. So anyway, and it's the best seat in the house.
This football field here is a very special place. I live right across the street on the corner at the Red Roof Inn. Got a lot of football signs out in the yard. It's been a lifelong thing living here in Constantine. Grew up here, graduated here, been here for a long time. Football in a small town is a big thing. In this small town, football is the thing.
There's still a lot of people today that think about the community effort it took to put Sweetland Stadium in there. In my opinion, a lot of times that kind of sets the tone a little bit for what's happening in the future. Then along comes Robert Finley. Now this was an outstanding coach. He was every bit like Tim Baker. You know, this was important to him, and his wife was very supportive of what he was doing. And he's the one that coached our 1937 undefeated, unscored upon team. And from that, I think we grew another step. You know, he made a program. He got people working. He made winners out of us.
Awesome.
Well, he did coach the undefeated, unscored upon team, which landed him in the Michigan Coaches Hall of Fame. And we were all very thrilled about that. And of course, being his daughter, I really think he certainly deserved it. He put a lot of time and effort in it. But I think the most part is what he taught to the kids and what they should be like when they're done playing football. That's what I heard back from the football players that my dad coached. And that was the most important thing that most coaches put first anyway. But my dad really did. Integrity, honesty, team, everything else. And I think that had a lot to do with the outcome of their lives. Let me read a letter from Danny McCarthy that was to my dad. Dear Coach, congratulations, a much-deserved honor for a great man. You've inspired many and are an example of the best. Although I only had you as a coach for one short football season, you made a deep and lasting impression on me. Thanks to the drive and the competitive fires you lit. They have helped me through many obstacles in my life and are still with me. I will always remember you as a friend, a coach, and a teacher. Thanks for all you did for me. Best wishes for good health and happiness always.
Constantine ends up having, from 1940 to 1958, they end up having 12 new head coaches. Robert Finley steps down after the 1939 season, and 9 of those head coaches end up being from 1940 to 1950. There's not really a lot going for Constantine. During that time, we needed someone to step up, take the rankings, do what Robert Finley did, and that person finally came. And it wasn't just one person, it was 3, Meredith Houston, Larry Masteller, and David Horn.
In '63, Dave Horn was the assistant football coach, and a guy named Larry Masteller had come in the year before. That was his first year. They hired him to be our head football coach. And I would like to spend a moment on the person that coached before Larry Masteller. His name was Meredith Houston. Spud Houston was his nickname, Spud. Don't know how I got that nickname, but he came here in 1958. And this is another guy that was very dedicated to football. And he is the first guy that I am aware of after Robert Finley back in the 30s who built a program. He wanted people to be in great condition. He wanted them to understand that football is a contact sport, and we're going to pound people. And we did drills, and it just happened that my freshman year he was still the football coach, so he brought me up to varsity, and he pounded me there. I ate my lunch more just about every night, but it certainly toughened me up and made me a football player. Spud Houston, in my opinion, is of the modern era of football. He was the guy that really started it, because he coached here 4 years, and we won our first St. Joe Valley Championship in 1961, and that was under him. And he took some pretty good athletes, and he made us football players. And so that, I think, is the beginning of this stage. And Larry Mastar comes in, and Larry is he's a good athlete himself, and he inherits a team that lost a slew of seniors. So we're pretty young in '62. We end up going 4-4, and then in '63 we go undefeated. And then we were undefeated in '63, '64, and '65. That's the only time that's ever happened in our history. And so I give a lot of credit to Spud Houston for establishing a tough football program that we kind of carried on through. Some of us were young at the time that he was coaching, but we kind of carried it on through. And then Coach Horn, he was part of the whole picture then. He was here when Spud Houston was here, so he knew what had happened, and so he carried that on. I carried that program on, and we were successful.
I sat down after I had graduated and I wrote a list of all the things I learned from him. And it was pretty lengthy. And, you know, he was, he worked you. For example, the wind sprints we run at the end. You know, we're going to run 5 wind sprints tonight. And everybody go as fast as they could, you know. I mean, there's only 5. And then he'd go, okay, just one more time. And then he'd go, okay, just one more time. Okay, we want to win this game. We need to do it one more time. And he would, you know, doing the little bit of extra, you know, working harder than somebody else. He also made, I'm going to say he made men out of people, out of boys sometimes. He could be tough. His coach was Bill Maskell from Galesburg, who was the winningest coach in Michigan football history for a long time.
You've heard of coaching trees, and that comes from your own personality, guys you've coached with, what your own belief system is, and Dave Horn took a lot of that from Bill Maskell. So Dave was highly relational. He knew all of us. He knew where we lived, knew our parents, probably coached an older brother. Dave would stop and have conversations with you, and just got to know you as a person. And you know, it was always pretty special when Coach Horn spent a couple minutes with you. I remember when I was in middle school, you know, the old middle school, it was still standing. You know, if you were a student there, you had to run across the parking lot to the high school for lunch and for PE. And I remember, I think I was 6th or 7th grade, and I said, "Hey, Mr. Horn, good luck tonight." And he said, "Thanks, Bianich." And, like, he knew me. Like, this guy knows me. Like, he knew my last name. Are you kidding me?
You know, you go down the throughs and you go to the St. Joe County Historic Building, and it's unreal what they have. They have records upon records. I'm talking 4 filing cabinets of all Coach Horn stuff. Pictures, records, scrapbooks with just each player that's earned a varsity letter from 1924 to 2007. Who keeps record of that? That's a special person. You know, that person cared.
His last year, 1981, now it ends up he comes back, but 1981, Pigeon's coming over here, they're undefeated, and we're undefeated. But nobody's talking about us. We're rated like 5th or 6th in the state. Pigeon's number 1 in the state, hasn't been scored on all year. And beat him 21-0.
First play of the game, they pitched the ball to Demas, and Bob Barber knifed right through it and tackled him for a big loss. And that set the tone for the game. And we shut our offense down. I think it was near the end of the first quarter when Watson went back and he threw the ball to David Thomas, who outleaped the white pigeon defender and walked into the end zone for a touchdown. So the undefeated, unscored upon team was now scored upon.
They brought all those balloons. They had them behind they brought all the balloons, kind of hid them behind the bleachers on the visitors' side because they were going to pop them every time or let them go, whatever they're going to do every time they scored. They never scored. After the game's over, you hear them popping the balloons over behind the bleachers because they never got a chance to let them go. You know, people are laughing on our sidelines. I mean,
They were hiding them under their coats, and they were squeezing them and popping them, and they left the remains underneath our bleachers and just walked back to their cars and went home. That was cool.
and then Dave Horn came back, but those next 3 years we were just kind of average in those years too. I mean, I don't think it was in his heart in those days, but he was doing it because they needed somebody to do it, and they wanted him to do it. So, and then they finally hired Bake, and when they hired Bake, things began to change.
Coach Tim Baker took over the Constantine football program in 1990. And when he took over, it was pretty clear that things were going to change.
Well, nobody was going to be more important than the team. You got to be there. You got to practice. We're going to lift weights. It's not going to be fun all the time. Yeah, you're going to have to take time out of your summer. And kids, that was back when we had a lot of tasseling going on. Kids would come in out of those fields, man, dirty and everything, go in, they get their weights done now, you know, and they knew it was important. And the thing is, you have to tell them, you know, I'm not doing this to punish you. I'm not doing, you know, this, we're doing this so when we play in 2 months, when we line up, you're going to be stronger than the guy across from you. And that's important, guys. And people, after a while, they figured it, you know, he's not crazy. And then, of course, we lifted during the season and did all those things a lot of time. Hey, not only were the coaches putting in time, players were putting in a lot of time. But it pays off. If you don't do that, it doesn't matter.
Coach Baker and I did a JV together, and we were taking a Michigan history class at Three Rivers High School, so we get done with practice and then have to drive right up to Three Rivers and start it. So we decided to say, okay, what would we do if it was our program? So we started with a tablet, and we would write down anything like black socks, wearing your hat backwards.
This is really where we kind of started our, you know, repair the sled, headphones, thigh pads. I mean, we went through everything.
We ended up with 80 things we wanted to put into our program. And then we got the program and we started doing it. I think it took us 15 years before we got through the whole list and put it in there. Our biggest thing was discipline. We wanted discipline, and it was, we talked about, we wanted a program for our kids to play in it.
We weren't very good. I think we had 17 guys. I knew I had some good players coming. We need to build a base here. no matter what happens this year, we want to win, but you got to set some standards.
The kids coming out, it was kind of tough. They were all under Coach Horn, who was a little different. Coach Lawler, a little different than what they ran into with Coach Baker and myself.
Went 3-6. We lost 2 overtime games, and we lost the Tomahawk game.
In 1929, an Indian arrowhead was discovered on a farmland between the 2 villages of Constantine and White Pigeon. The arrowhead stone eventually got a handle, and it became a trophy for one of the greatest rivalries in high school sports.
The good old Tomahawk game. I mean, growing up, that was the biggest game of the year. 4,000, 5,000 people are here to watch Constantine versus White Pigeon. 300 people in the high school, very small schools, and you know that game meant so much because you could see the water tower from both stadiums of the other school. They didn't like each other. I was fortunate enough to be a part of the last one as a freshman, but just knowing everyone from White Pigeon, you might even be related to them. This was the biggest game of the year.
I love the Tomahawk more than anything, to be honest, just because you grew up with those kids. A lot of them are friends now. A lot of kids from White Pigeon I'm close with, and it's just, I'm 40 some years old now, and you still brag about never losing to White Pigeon.
Back in 1993, a couple of years after Coach Baker took over, he came to me and handed me a Tomahawk. And he said, Kent, will you build these for me? And I said, sure. And he said, I want them built for all of the team and all the coaches. Now I can show you one. They had their name and number, and if they were a captain, the handle was painted white and it had a C on it. And the year was also put on them. Well, in some years I made over 80 of these, and it took 3 days.
They had this big celebration, and they just kind of rubbed it in. I went to church the next day, and I went to White Pigeon, the Catholic church. After it was done, I got out, I came back, and I took my wife, and she goes, where are we going? I said, we're going to the White Pigeon football field. She goes, why? I said, just don't worry about it. I went out, and I got out, and I remember I walked all the way down. I walked all the way back. I got in the car, and I told my wife, I says, I'm never getting beat by those son of bitches again. Kind of just between my wife and I. And I didn't.
The only thing I can say other than that is, if you wanted to know Coach Baker's really feelings about how it was with White Pigeon, he has never eaten in a restaurant in White Pigeon. I remember an instance where he had left the program, and Coach Griff had taken it, and he was sitting on the bleachers down by the pole vault, and he didn't bring his phone in, and he'd parked out in the parking lot, so he left out by the band room to go get his phone, and a whole group of White Pigeon people were standing along the fence, and the profanity was unbelievable directed at him, about he's cheating and no good, whatever, and blah blah blah. So after that, I caught up with Bake, and I said, man, they kind of roughed you up. He said, what are you talking about? He said he never heard it. Well, but anyway. So
after the 1990 loss, Coach Baker and Constantine football absolutely owned White Pigeon. For 17 straight years, the Falcons never lost the White Pigeon.
I mean, I would assume that when he took the program over, that was first and foremost was gain respect for the program, but then also win the Tomahawk. And then it probably transitioned in, let's win, okay, we got that down, let's win the conference. Let's make this, instead of a 2-headed monster league, let's make it a 3-headed monster.
In our junior year now, established program, kind of know what we're doing a little bit, getting a little bit better at what we were doing, getting the offense down. You know, we come out, we have a pretty good season going.
The next year, you know, we went 7-2, made the playoffs, went up to Muskegon Oak Ridge, played, and it was that week of, here's the first time you make the playoffs, everybody's excited, snowstorm.
The weather was going to be terrible for Muskegon. I think it was 7 degrees or something. At game time, it was frozen, it was nasty. We knew it was going to be like this ahead of time.
We went up, and they had to, you know, clear their field off. There was snow all over. They did a good job. I mean, it had a nice facility, but it was 8 degrees at game time. 8 degrees. And yes, I had shorts on. We got beat, you know, like 27-6 or something. Kids played hard, but they were better than us. And that was kind of the start of, we're going to play defense first, offense second. Then, of course, 94 came along, and we had a great team.
94 was just remarkable. We started winning.
In 1994, Constantine went undefeated in regular season and absolutely slaughtered their way through the playoffs, making it to the state championship for the first time ever in school history. The 1994 team was dominant, outscoring their opponents 504 to 106. This team was nothing to mess with.
Just tough. And we played, first home playoff game was Fenville. Fenville comes in, they're 11-0, won their conference, and I mean, they have racked up some points.
So I get a call in the middle of the week from the Grand Rapids Press. Mike, we didn't want to talk to your head coach about this, but we just wondered, as an athletic director, we don't see how you could possibly beat Fenville. I mean, this guy is good, and they're undefeated, and nobody's touched them. And I said, well, here's what I'll tell you. We're going to show up and play. And let's see what the results are. Afterwards, we can talk. Of course, we had the Hardman boys as down linemen, defensive linemen, and nobody could block them. We never had anybody block them all year. And I knew they were going to just raise hell with them, because what we saw on film was they didn't block very well. And if that was the case, then they were going to have two Hardmans chasing their butt all over the place. And then we got Chad Steers and Charlie Taylor as linebackers, and they were both tough dudes. And I said, I just don't see. I felt the same way Fenville felt. I don't see how you could beat us, because we're going to kill you.
We beat them 50-0. 50-0.
It wasn't even a contest. I mean, we were kicking their ass. So you know, that was a big game, because our first home game against the undefeated team, we just kicked their ass. Played Newaygo, beat them.
And that was our first regional championship, and we beat them like 13-6. And then we go to Alma College the next week, and we played Whittemore Prescott.
If somebody asked me to pick one day that was special, more special than any other day, I honestly think I would pick this day. Even though it wasn't for the state championship, it was a special day in every way that you could put it together.
And they had this kid named Tom Tyson who had set the state scoring record. Okay? Most points ever scored by a running back. Yardage, this guy, they called him Touchdown Tommy and everything. And this kid was a stud. He was probably 6 foot, probably went about 220 and could run. He had 48 yards.
You know, that would be like in my top 4 games of my whole career. the crowd, our crowd was so loud you couldn't hear. We were in our locker room, and when it was time for the special teams to go out, you could hear the people just go insane. And the linemen stayed in the locker with me. And these guys all had their uniforms on, their helmets on, and they're staring at me. And I'm going, guys, we got 20 minutes. So I got them calmed down. About 5 minutes. They had their mouthpieces in, their helmets on, staring at me, ready to go. Crowding me, ready to go. I said, okay, we're out of here. The Steers family got an airplane with a banner to fly around the stadium.
My parents had saw at a different event airplane that was flying over a banner, so they're like, hey, maybe we should do something for the team, another community thing. So Dad calls up to the Lansing airport and asks if they have anybody that does that, and they put him in touch with the business that did, and they went ahead and set up a contract and had that flyover done for that game. And they were just so proud of that team, the things they're going and the way things were that. And it wasn't just about Chad, it was about the team and the community, and they were proud to do that for them.
We looked at their film, and their 5 down offensive linemen averaged 232. So they were big. 2 of our defensive linemen are 140 pounds, the Hardmans. They are little, but they're state champion wrestlers. So they know how to navigate, And so when our corner, one corner weighed 127, one weighed 135. So we looked like a middle school team out there when they came out on the field. They were huge, and their backfield was just as big as their linemen were. And so it was like, what? Holy mackerel. The people were looking and saying, this doesn't even look like it's going to be a game, We'd seen the film. We knew they didn't block very well. And we figured that, look out, because our linemen are going to get after you. So, as it turns out, the opening play, we kicked off. He caught the ball. It was deep kickoff. He caught a ball around the goal line. The guy takes off, and Luke Heskett hit that son of a bitch so hard. He flew up in the air, and the ball flew up in the air out. And Adam Town jumped on the ball. We had the ball on the 5-yard line. First play, we score. It's 7-0, 10 seconds to go off the clock. So that was the beginning, and that we beat them 54-6. So did we play very well that night? I'd say we played pretty damn well. We smoked them, man. We smoked them.
Constantine absolutely dominates Whitmore Prescott and lands themselves in the state championship for the first time in school history. However, Constantine was playing a very tough opponent in the finals, Orchard Lake St. Mary.
Which, is a private Catholic school, it's a prep school. They had a kid in their team named David Bowens who had a 11-year pro career. Went to Michigan, was the Big Ten Freshman of the Year. And then besides that, they had 5 other Division I athletes out there in Division II. They were loaded.
I started asking questions to myself. What do we play in Orchard Lake St. Mary's for? It's a boarding school. It's an all-boys school. So they had 488 boys. We had 484 students, half of which were girls. Well, that right there is not fair. In a boarding school, they had players from 7 different states on that team. They had 6 Division I players on that team. Bowen, who started at defensive end against us, started for Michigan the next year. That's who we were playing. Well, we would have happily played any public school in our division, and we would have pounded them. Because Fenville and Whittemore Prescott were 2 of the best, and we pounded them. It wasn't close. So We played the game, we lost 35-7. I'm telling you right now, that was about the most unfair thing I ever saw in my life. And I got on the phone the next week, and then I wrote a letter to Jack, president of the MHSA, and I said, hey, this is, how unfair is this situation? I said, look, we'll play anybody, but you got to make it fair. At least be a school, public school like us, you know, or if it's going to be a private school, they should be like us with girls and boys, not all boys. I know, Mike, I know. Well, yeah, I know. It's our first chance to win a state championship, and we didn't have a chance, really, because we had a hell of a good football team. And so 2 years later, finally got it through, but if you have 488 boys, you double that, and that's the division you're in.
Orchard Lake St. Mary is now a Division II football team, playing teams such as Catholic Central, Brother Rice, and Detroit Country Day in their regular season. It's kind of odd to think about that in 1994, they were classified as a Class C school.
You didn't know it in the moment, you didn't know it as a 10-year-old or whatever, but like that was where the standards started to get set, and the culture, I guess you would call it culture today. Like that's when the culture was built and the expectations were laid out. The discipline came in. Football almost became not just an August thing.
There's a lot of shoulda, woulda, couldas, and with that feeling, you know, 97 go 8-1, don't make it. We end up losing to an undefeated Mendon team in 97. Don't make it. 98, my senior year, we were number 1 in the state all year. Come off a big win in the Tomahawk game, beating a really good White Pigeon team that Saturday. And that Friday we go play Olivet, who's undefeated. We're number 1, they're number 2 in the state. We lose to them in a nail biter, and we don't make playoffs. And it's gut-wrenching because, you know, on a personal level, it's gut-wrenching, but it's also on a community level. You feel like you let the community down because they really anticipated playoffs. They backed you so much. You felt like you were playing not only for yourself and the team, but for the community. And it was hard. But, it does last. In 95, didn't make the playoffs, 8-1, lost to a state champion Mendon team. 97, lose to Mendon, who was undefeated. And then 98, you lose to Olivet, who was a larger school, but we lost them 8-0 and still don't make the playoffs. So, you're looking back, it would have been fun to have the get in with 6 wins playoff system, but it wasn't. After losing to Olivet and that, nail biter, sitting there waiting for the bus, and I get my head down, I got my gloves there, and at that time I was a senior and Bro Baker was in 6th grade. He was a manager for the team, and he was my buddy. And, so I remember giving him my receiver gloves, and a decade later or so, Bro still had those receiver gloves. I remember sitting there talking to him, and I remember to this day with my head down looking up and handing them to him.
What young Corey Benz didn't know was at that time, what he thought was a little action was going to create a ripple that would echo throughout Constantine for an eternity.
McGowan, wing right. Aaron Baker, back, rolling left. Man downfield, he's winging it down. It's worth going up. And catching out of the end zone. Stadium for the Super touchdown.
In the early 2000s, Constantine was a playoff caliber team year in and year out, making the playoffs in 1999, 2000, and 2001. The first 3 years, the MHSAA made the new rule that if you win 6 games or more, you're in the playoffs. However, Constantine struggled once they got to the playoffs. Constantine needed to do something to give them that competitive edge to push them further into the playoffs. Sean Griffith, the offensive coordinator at Constantine at the time, knew exactly what they needed to do. They were going to put the wing T offense in.
Griff comes up to me, and we had all these really good running backs coming through. And I said, I went with it. And I mean, like, Reimer and all these guys are going, what? What? I say, I really trust in this. Griff knows what he's talking about, and he does.
To me, that wasn't football. It was just hide and hoagie, as we called it. But once I got introduced to it and found out what it was, our blocking on the line was so easy.
Why did we go to the wing T? You really have to look earlier than 02. In 1996, we played Hopkins. Hopkins was a wing T team. Played them in the playoffs. In 1999, we played Muskegon Orchardview. Muskegon Orchardview set all kinds of national records for scoring with the wing T. That included 60-some points against us. We played Penfield and got beat by Penfield in 2000 or 2001. Because of their wing T, we struggled to do that. But I'm going to tell you what really sold me was sitting in coaches' meetings when we were playing teams that are wing T teams, and watching Coach Reimer and Coach Strausser just about come to fist fights because one of them wanted this guy here for the pass and one of them needed this guy here for the run.
There were our moments. On Sunday nights, if you're going to go in there and you want to do something that they don't want to do, you better grow a pair. Because it's called the war room for a reason.
So what I really love about this offense is there's a counter to everything that the defense is doing. You just got to be slick enough to figure out what the defense is trying to do to stop you, and then you counter it. Now some would say, well, it's that way with every offense. But name another offense where if that quarterback doesn't have the ability to beat your defense, they're going to be successful against you. Now, if I got a great quarterback here, you're going to have trouble stopping me. If I don't have a great quarterback here, guess what? Teams still have trouble stopping me. So it also came to be where we played, in 1999, we played Penfield out on Sweetland Stadium. We beat Penfield by one score. Penfield was on the fourth-string quarterback, and we only beat them by one score. That said volumes to me as well. I'm like, there's a lot to this. The other part of this is, in all those years, 99, 2000, 2001, our 02 and 04 schools were coming through rocket football and middle school football. And the one thing I could tell was we got a lot of running backs. A lot of running backs coming here. We had kids that couldn't get on the field as a running back for us that I know would have been starters at any other league school, and we had a great league. So that's how many, we just had a stable full of kids. How do you keep all those kids happy? We want to keep them out. You're certainly not going to in the I formation feeding one guy the ball 20, 30 times a game. You're going to end up losing kids and losing really good kids.
I was one of those. You had, juniors ahead of you that were much better running backs. You weren't going to have a lot of playing time. So the wing T kind of made it a lot, putting everybody and not just stopping one or two people. It was something special.
That time, the time with the talent really helped us as a coaching staff kind of figure out how we wanted the Constantine wing T to kind of progress into now. We're still running the wing T.
So 2002 comes around. I'd been doing the same thing I've been doing every summer, running, lifting, hitting conditionings, doing whatever I need to do. And I walked into a gym just like this, And basically, Griff told me, everything you know about football, throw it out. You're going to run the wing tee. And, you know, if I had known what the wing tee was at the time, it probably would have been a little more scary. Fortunately, I was young, naive. So I'm like, yeah, wing tee, that's fine. Little did I know, every play I was going to do was going to be opposite of what I did on Power I. And, yeah, I mean, it was an experience. I remember that first day, turning to the wrong side. I mean, if it's an even call, I'm turning to the left now instead of the right. Not everybody plays quarterback, but when your mind is set on, I turn to the right on even, I turn to the left on odd, it's a whole new beast at that point.
I mean, we just had those classes below us. I mean, Robert and Chris Hall were up as sophomores and just, you know, unbelievable running backs. But then below us, I mean, you had Craig and Scott and John, you had the Schrag twins, you had McGill, Speedy McGill. Like, we just were loaded running backs. It kind of made sense. Wing T is a pain in the ass. I know nobody likes it, but it's because it's a bitch to stop.
Constantine had found its new offense. And with this new offense came a brand new season with new expectations. But I don't think anybody was prepared for what was going to happen next.
First game, did what we were expected to do. Came up against Edwardsburg, put up, I think there's a news article, 344 yards on the ground. Chris Hall, Robert Roll, doing what they did. They were moved up young, so they knew what they were supposed to do.
We had this kid named Chris Hall, who just was prototype fullback, but he was fast. He won the county in the 100. And against Schoolcraft, second game of the season, he tore his ACL. And we end up getting beat. And we really kind of felt sorry for ourselves. You could see it. And that pissed me off more than anything.
At that point, we're lost. I mean, we're playing that game and we're trying to keep up. We're doing what we can do, but I mean, you're talking about a team that lost one of its best players, and the Saturday practice, I'll never forget. Baker came in and basically told us we hit like a bunch of girls, to put it nicely. That's what we were hitting like. And then looking back on film, we weren't even the team you saw when we went to state. That wasn't our team.
But to be honest with you, that's what made our team. I mean, that next week was hell practice. I mean, it was, but it's what made us. It was, you know, if we start practice at 8 o'clock, you know, practice starts at 7:45. Well, that week it was, we knew we had to be there at 7:45, and Coach Reimer's blowing his whistle at 7:30, and we're expected out there, and we're going through, and we're going at it. And so, I want to say that was the fair week too. So that Monday, we're out there, we're early in the morning because the staff has PD, and 7:30 they're blowing the whistle, and we got guys walking out, and they're just on our ass.
Because if we're going to feel sorry because Chris Hall is hurt, we're not going to be worth a crap. We're done. And so you ask it. I mean, my son Austin was on that team. I remember he came home on Monday night. I'm down watching film in my basement, and he goes, "Dad, that practice was tough." I said, "Wait till tomorrow." He just got up and walked upstairs.
And then it's just hitting drill after hitting drill after hitting drill. And, you know, we're doing all of them. We're doing bump, thump, stump. We're doing freaking, I remember even as DB, we'd always be doing the sweep drills and taking on. But this time it's, you know, at least we're with our DB group. So being a 140-pound corner, at least I'm going against guys that are kind of my size. But no, he has an offensive lineman running. And it's Cody Hayden, and it's freaking Dalton Bischoff and Ashley Williams, and they're going full speed. I remember breaking my face mask then. It was just that, overcoming that though. I mean, it was a bitch every single day that week.
But it sent the message, and those guys, some teams might have folded, these kids didn't fold.
That week was definitely what made us though. I mean, you know, we beat Bronson, we shut them out. Centerville next week.
Colin, and then we got Mendon. And so Mendon, that was definitely the most physical game ever been a part of.
Should we rerun at 28 hours instead of 26? Okay. He said yes. Do it. Right? Let's stop their man. Make sure you keep the back shoulder straight. Watch the ball. Be disciplined. Don't jump. Don't jump.
In that game, and they probably had the better team, and we beat them in the most physical football game I've ever coached in.
You know, it's a dogfight, play after play. I mean, there was times freaking Jared Dell, their monster running back, is coming through, and him and McCauley are meeting, and Dell's helmet's rolling off, and his next play, boom, McCauley's helmet's rolling off. And it was like, I mean, it was a freaking battle.
(22-21). That was the end of the game. Constantine comes out, 1 point, and it's probably one of the biggest memories I have of Constantine football. It was a great time. I love that game.
Constantine defeats Mendon in an all-out battle. But this wasn't the end for Constantine's momentum and growth in 02. No, it was just the beginning.
Playoffs start 2002. We got Hillsdale. I don't know much about them outside of being a smaller school by us. Didn't expect much from them, and I will give Hillsdale credit on that one. They were a tough team. If that was one of the games we were going to have a bad game, that's the one we could have lost. So all the credit to Hillsdale there. They played us really well. Edwardsburg comes along. Second week, we know we're going to beat them. We're ready to beat them.
And, you know, we play Edwardsburg. We already beat them earlier this year. So that one, I don't want to say we overlooked it, but it was definitely, I think we got out 14-0 right away, and then they scored 2. So then it was tied up, and they were driving. So it was kind of, oh shit. And Andy White picked off a pass, ran it down quite a ways, and then from there we rolled on 42-14, district champs, got to do it at home. So that was very special.
We're ready to move on to regionals, see who we got from the east side or west side of the state, whatever it comes down to. I don't care where they're from. We knew regionals was gonna be where it's at. We get to Oak Ridge, and Oak Ridge was ranked number 1 in the state, expected to win.
And I remember they had some company down there that was sending us these facts of welcome to Eagle Country, and I didn't make a big deal out of it. Coach Reimer got a hold of it. It was plastered all over the frickin' locker room.
I remember catching punts and thinking, this is probably it. And being a manager, being a player, and then even being a coach, always being out there with the specialties, there was always no better feeling than when all of a sudden you got Coach Reimer and the linemen and walking out the locker room and walking the field. I mean, we were always never the biggest, always seemed smaller than everybody else, but then you just glance at them and you look at them and they're just focused. And it was, I mean, I remember that as a manager, I loved it as a player, and I remember them walking out and walking around and just going through that crowd, and it was like, I don't think it's gonna be today. They scored first, they're up 7-0, and then quarterback just rolled out and dropped it. And Adams, right place, right time, scoops it up and does a scoop and score. And I remember, I don't think I ever screamed so loud in my life. Probably higher pitched than all 3 of my girls. we ended up scoring before half. We're up 13-7, and then it was, you know, I think we caused 6 turnovers that game. I think we had five fumbles. I got a pick, and it was, you know, one of those after the game, like, holy shit, like we just knocked off the #1 team.
Just an electric atmosphere, and to know that we had a chance to go and take away the kind of the shine off their season and the #1 ranking that they had and all that was hugely motivating. I think we were so prepared and focused going into that game that you know, I'm not surprised of the outcome of that game.
And probably one of the biggest wins in Constantine history.
That's going to do it. Oak Ridge is done for the season. That's it.
If all goes right, I think we win that game 19-7. And that's to say a lot against the #1 team in the state. That's absolutely walking through people. I mean, enough that they're sending brochures to people saying, don't even show up. We're already got our tickets paid for. We already got our seats picked out. We're not worried about you guys from the South. We'll go up there, take care of business. We'll get our state championship. We'll walk out. We'll be happy with that. We probably hurt some lives with that game. I'm not gonna lie.
Constantine rolls past Muskegon Oak Ridge and lands themselves in the semifinals for the second time in school history. Constantine ends up playing Benzie Central in the semifinals and wins 25-0. Constantine is going back to the Silver Dome.
At the end of the game, though, I remember my most important part of probably all my high school career, and Coach Reimer he's never known this, I probably never ever told him, but I looked over because I grew up with Kyle Reimer, and Ken Reimer was like a second dad to me. And I looked over to my right, watching him look down at probably at the scoreboard. I don't know what he was looking at. And I have never been so proud in my life, because it felt like, it's like taking your dad to the promised land. It's just like, here's where you wanted to go, and we're getting you there.
For Constantine, Tim Baker in his 13th year, he too has put up some very gaudy numbers. One loss this year to Schoolcraft. What is the team built, as we mentioned, on defense?
We got beat 14-0 by a very good team. Kind of disappointed the way I prepared our team that week. I'll never forget that. I just was not happy with myself as a coach.
We're inside the 20 4 times and don't score a point. I could not believe it. And I thought, wow, that's too bad, because I think we were with Chris Hall, we were better than they were. And that was just too bad. I felt bad for those guys. The old team was a bit of a surprise that we made it all the way to the finals, but boy, on the other hand, disappointing that we didn't win those, because we had a chance.
Surreal to be there, because only one team from Constantine had done that before. You know, you're talking about the 1994 team, and holy crap, you're about to do what the 1994 team did. And I do remember that going through my head and being nervous about that, but it never impacted my play. I never strayed away from what we were going to do. It never made me try to play out of what I was supposed to do. I never tried taking over the game. I don't think anybody did. I think we played the best game we could have under the circumstances, but I think the circumstances could have been a little better in that regard.
The 02 season wraps up with Constantine losing in the state championship. Lee Jennings, who was a junior at the time and the starting quarterback, returns for the following year and brings Constantine to the regional finals against Ravenna.
11 undefeated teams, and we're one of them. You got 02 that went to state, and then you got the redhead stepchild of 03. And in that one, I don't think there's a coach or Messner that doesn't think we should have won state. And it kills me inside to know we didn't. and we watched the team that we lost to by 4 go and win state, and that hurts. That's a life lesson. I think God works in mysterious ways and teaches you things that you're going to need in life. And I think it probably built a lot of character in a lot of guys that maybe that's what they needed, and I needed, or we needed, whatever it is. Does it hurt? Yeah. Do I think about it? I mean, it doesn't run my life, but to say I don't dream about it once in a while and just be like, man, it's the one I wanted. It's the one. After you get there, you expect to get back and then rectify what you had done the year before. We lost, so now I need to go win. You know, even show Kyle Reimer, hey, I got it. I brought you here for the first time. We lost. I'm sorry, but I got one for us. Like, I always felt like the guy. I wanted to clean stuff up. I wanted to, and most importantly, I wanted to make the coaches proud. I think at the end of the day, and I'm not the only one. I think our whole team as a whole, regardless of what they say, at the end of the day, they busted their butts just because they didn't want to let the coaches down. We really respected Baker and Reimer and Griff and all those guys that we didn't want to see them mad at us or let the team down, or let the community down at that. You know, you don't make playoffs, or you don't get 7 wins, or you don't go to this, you're this. And we kind of got stuck in purgatory with that whole season because you lose in regionals and you're just kind of another statistic that falls along the lines of the 95, 96, 97. I mean, these are guys I idolized. These are guys I watched and loved and thought they were the best football players on the planet. You could have put them against any NFL player, and I still said Corey Benz or Brandon Ambrose or those guys. Like, nah, they're the greatest.
So what's next for Constantine football? Lee Jennings graduates, and a new class of seniors roll in. I hope you remember Corey Benz telling that story about giving his receiver gloves to 6th grade Bro Baker. Because now Bro Baker is a senior, and he's the starting quarterback. And him and his team are about to do something that no other team has ever done in Constantine history.
We knew how talented we were going into that year. Like I said, from the previous year, I can speak personally. Weight room and practice and everything else. I gained a lot of confidence just personally going into that year. We just knew how talented our class was. Like I said, I'm pretty sure we had 17 seniors that all played together, 7th grade on up.
And one thing, why I think our team was what it was is because we could count on the guy next to us, which even more of a deeper level than a teammate, more of a family, a brotherhood, you could even call it, something, you know, that you read about even, you know, in those magazines and books, you know, that where you feel like the line wanted the block because they didn't want the backs to even get hit.
I remember when we were little, we had a babysitter that was across from Coach Reimer's house, down the block from the Cartagenas, and we would meet up at Eastside Elementary and we'd play baseball or we'd play football, and there was just always a group of kids playing.
The 2004 Constantine football team was a very tight-knit group of kids. They started the season off with an unbelievable blowout win against Edwardsburg. That blowout win gave them momentum that they carried with them. All the way to Wheat Sits, where they played Menden. They lost that Menden game, but with that loss came lessons that this team needed.
And I tell people, no, I hate getting beat by Menden. I hate getting beat by school. But our kids, it was one of those ones we needed to get beat. When we got beat, that just refocused. Our kids just, we didn't, as coaches, we sat down and talked about it. We didn't go out the next week and get crazy or anything. We just said, hey, we've got a good football team here. We weren't carrying out. We looked at the film. We didn't carry out our fakes. And Menden, on the other hand, that was their state championship game. Really was. Because they had a very good team. And what do? They went and got beat by Schoolcraft at the last game of the season, who we beat 35-0 that year. So they put all their eggs in that basket, and then now when they got beat by Schoolcraft, they made a run. But sometimes you need a loss.
It made us take a step back and be like, okay, we're not bulletproof. We need to take it, one step at a time and not get ahead of ourselves.
After that loss, it was we practiced harder week in, week out, made some personnel changes. It was a good loss. I always refer back to like Alabama football teams and stuff. They've won multiple national championships over the past 10, 15 years with one-loss seasons. Sometimes losses aren't always the worst thing. I mean, especially in our senior year, it was a good thing. We were a dang good football team, but you realize, all right, you don't play your best, and it doesn't matter, what they say on paper or how good you think you are and everything. You don't play your best, and yeah, you get beat.
That loss feeds in to Constantine's ambitions, and they win out the last 3 games of the season in absolute blowouts. Constantine is heading to the playoffs with hopes of bringing home a state championship.
It was a one game at a time mentality. Like, I don't even remember really looking at like the playoff bracket. Like, if we win this game, who would we play next? If we win this game, like, I had no idea. Like, I think after we beat Buchanan, I don't even know if we knew we were playing Montague next or who the next team was. I don't even think we looked at that stuff. I think it was a one game at a time. Every game was, I think we had that mentality. Every game was a state championship. I mean, you don't win this game, you don't play the next one. So, yeah, I don't remember, especially I don't remember after beating Montague, I was like, I had no idea who we were playing next.
Of course, yeah, you get to Marshall, and we got Monroe St. Mary's, and their coach, Jack Giarmo, good friend of mine, and it's tough coaching against friends, and we knew, we talked before the game, we knew that this was probably the game that the team that came out of here was probably going to win the state championship.
What do you think, Coach? Coach Baker ready?
They ran the wing tee. We ran the wing tee.
Going up there, we're ready. Game started, and you could see it in everybody's eyes by the second, third drive. These guys were good.
Really good wing tee football team we're playing. They had all the makings, had a good quarterback, had great running backs, and their defense was probably the best Monroe St. Mary's defense that we had played, and we've played them 4 or 5 times in the playoffs over the years. We were down, and really there's a couple plays that really show, that really kept us in the game and allowed us to win that game. The first one was we were down 14, just a couple minutes left in the game, and we lined up in a passing formation for us, which was wing. Sean Wolf out wide. I think they really, Monroe thought that we were going to throw football. We ran a trap, and Jimmy goes up the middle untouched, scores a touchdown.
Kick the extra point, we're down 27-21. Onside kick. They recovered.
So now Monroe has to just run the clock out. We end up using all our timeouts. We can't stop the clock. They run it under a minute, well under a minute. They punt the ball. It's a short kick. It's one that normally our punt returners would just let hit. But if Mike Schrag lets this hit and roll, the clock is gonna run through that hit and roll. We'd have never had time for the last drive. Mike came up on the run, caught it, didn't fair catch it. Probably didn't have, I don't even know that he'd had time to fair catch it because it was one of those line drive. Not a whole lot he could do with it. He ran up, caught the ball. When he caught the ball, he got hammered. I mean, he got smoked because it was a short kick. But because he caught the ball in the air and was down right at the spot, clock stops.
I don't know why I had him back on punts. Of course, he's our fastest kid. But if I punted him 10 punts, he'd probably drop 9 of them.
I think there were a couple things that happened there. One, it's the belief in the team to know that they still have a chance and to keep fighting. Because down 14 with just a few minutes left, it's easy to start thinking, boy, is this my last one? But you can see the belief. And so they're driving down the field.
So they spread me out. We're getting down. It was like 20 some seconds. So I think we blew our timeout. I'm telling Coach Bake, let's do the hook and ladder. You know, we've been practicing these trick plays. Hey, we need something, flea flick or something. He's like, hey, I want you to do a curl and get out of bounds. So that'll work. So hey, I do the curl, turn inside. Look at the clock. I still have 3 seconds. I can get out of bounds. Well, I'm going to get out of bounds. The guy hits my ankles, and I'm going down, and I ain't gonna get out of bounds. So I've thought about it. I was like, so if I let this ball go out of bounds, it'll stop the clock. And we're all just shouting out at Coach Bake, hey, do this play, reverse, whatever. And he tells me, Sean, get in the end zone. Get in the end zone.
Magawa, wing right. Aaron Baker, back, rolling left. Man downfield, he's winging it down. We're going up and catching it.
The guy was there with me, so we both caught it. But my hands are on the inside. So naturally, falling, coming down, made me make the catch. So when I caught it, he says, shit, he caught it. And I look down, and I'm like waist deep in the end zone. So at this point, I stand up, going ecstatic, can't start to hyperventilate. I'm supposed to be on the extra point team. They're telling me to get off the field. I don't even know what's going on.
Time on the clock. The Falcons still must convert the extra point, ladies and gentlemen. We're tied at 27. The Falcons need the extra point. What a play by Aaron Baker.
I mean, everybody on our sidelines going crazy. Thank goodness Jay Willie, our kicker, sophomore kicker, by the way, had the presence of mind. This is what I do when we score touchdowns. He'd already run the tee out. Because keep in mind, we don't have a timeout, so we can't take a timeout to get our stuff set. And referees also, the referees could have flagged us for having too many. I mean, because people were going crazy. We had guys on the field at that point.
And at that point, I was at the top of the stands. I ran all the way down to the bottom of the stands. I have people that are not from Constantine there with me. They're in tears. They're crying. They're going crazy.
There's a rush. Extra point kick is out high. And it's good! And the Constantine Falcons are going to the Pontiac Silverdome with an amazing 28-27 win over Monroe St. Mary Catholic Central in the Division 6 state semifinal game. What an amazing finish. Amazing finish. Ladies and gentlemen, this is probably one of the best high school football games we have had the pleasure of broadcasting in many, many years. The Falcons being mobbed on the field by their family and their friends. And
I'm like 10 feet up from the track. I just hurdle this cement wall. I land on the track, and Bro Baker is beelining for me. And the embrace was one of so many years of growing up together.
It's haywire. People are on the field. Red team's on the field. Their team's confused. We don't even know what's going on at this point.
are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Oh my God! Unbelievable! Oh my God! Number 17, I have never seen anything like that! You gotta be kidding me! You have got to be kidding me!
The celebration went on for a long time on the field. It was pretty unique. I thought that was quite a night. So now we're going to the state championship. Wow!
Of course, the state championship game. We thought we were the best team.
Give me one tonight. What do you think, Coach? Another victory for the Falcons. We'll score more points. All right. He's always got great words of advice.
But Sutton's Bay came back. They scored. They were good too. We were better, and we won the game. And of course, we set some records. I think we still have the most offensive yardage in a state championship game. Jim Schrag rushed for 307 yards. That's still a state record in the championship game. So that was a special team.
You know what they say, third time's a charm, and that's no different for Constantine football. Making it in 94, 2002, and finally in 2004, bringing home the state championship.
Yep, he takes the knee, and Aaron Baker and Constantine celebrates. Everyone celebrates in that great city for the first time ever. They'll be champions.
This state championship wasn't just for the 04 team. It was for the 02 team, the 94 team, the 91 team, and every team that played through Constantine. The state championship was for the village, the community, the coaches, and everyone who's ever been involved in Constantine football. Like the famous saying always goes, will the last person in Constantine please turn off the lights?
Read the room, we just different how we do this. If you going up against us, it's your end conclusion. Read the room, said, read the room, yeah, this your end conclusion. We just different how we do this. Hey, we just different how we do this. Cut a weak rapper caught in my teeth, I need a toothpick. If you ain't been down with us, I see that as delusion. I know, probably got hit too hard, caused confusion. This about the hard work, not who's the cool kid. If the others killing it, what I do must be gruesome. Find me in my zone, faster than the tool spit. When I'm at a beat, it's like I got another meta, buddy, better like a better bazooka. All my haters looking at me like a superhuman. I'm the best man at it like a groomsman. Prove myself, think I proved it. Focused on my purpose. The main course, no substitutions. Got me grooving, ooh, said I need that. Red and blue behind me, going too fast in the speed trap.
1, 2, 3, yes, sir!
She touched down, got a sack, fitting recap. Stumbled on the hidden missing link to bring a lead back. You could do it too, I'm the same as you, I bleed red. Difference is I saw my goal and took a deep breath. After contemplation made a vow I'll never be less. Dial stuck on 10, every day I eat stress. I got sick, now at the doctor for treatments. Upon return, nothing word, look concerned, speechless. Told him kinda figured that I'd be sick till I meet death. Read the room, we just different how we do this. If you going up against us, it's your end conclusion. Read the room, said, read the room, yeah, this your end conclusion. We just different how we do this. When I say that we different how we do this, I studied all the greats and why the public like their music. Late at night, during the day, and at noon is the time I would write, engineer, produce my new hits. But you know what? Most of the time it wasn't new hits. Alone I'd practice rhyming my methods in execution. Alone I'd be at work with my friends, partied with cool kids. Alone with a shot in a million I kept pursuing. Ooh, I wouldn't want it any other way. If it was, I don't even know if I would come to play. Got a buzz, people thought I was bound to fail. Got a buzz, people thought I was bound to fail, but now we great. What it was, what it is, I'm on the up like a toupee. Trolls mad that he cold at it, they so damaged. Should use two hands to get a grip when I'm the whole package. Fostered anger then grows rapid, it's so sad when an old ragged with no talent gets so avid. But they not my concern, take a beat and toe tag it. Show clapping from cold rapping, that's old fashioned. Show passion, enthusiasm and bold action. Savage in my grasp like a bear when it holds salmon. Let's go. Read the room, we just different how we do this. If you going up against us, it's your end conclusion. Read the room, said, read the room, yeah, this your end conclusion. We just different how we do this.
We're a small school. We don't always have the most superior athletes. That's just not going to happen in a small school. You have them sometimes. Sometimes you don't. But for 25 straight years, we won 7 games or more. No other school in the state of Michigan's ever done that. We've checked that all out. Detroit Free Press is the one that called me about that and said, Mike, this was when we'd won 20 years in a row, we'd had 7 wins or more. They called me and said, hey, do you know that for 20 straight years you've won 7 games or more? I said, I didn't know that. I mean, I guess I do know that, but I never figured it out. I never talked about it. Wow. Well, we did 5 more years after that, 25 years in a row. And I looked at all the great programs, including Mendon, Schoolcraft, Brother Rice, you know, all the famous programs. Nobody ever done that. So that's something.
2004, Coach Baker came to me and I knew there was championship rings being presented to players and coaches, and he came to me and he said, Ken, he said, from all your contribution, he said, I'd like to have you have a ring. And I said, by golly, I'll get one. So we sized up, and that's how I ended up with a ring.
So the tradition really never changed. Coach Griff was alongside Bake for all those years, and now Bake retired and Griff took over, and it didn't change, it felt like. And the coaches are just there for you no matter what. If a player's late, they're gonna go pick you up. They need to make sure everyone's there every day for practice, make sure the guys are ready, working over the summer, and just prepared overall for the season to have another winning season. You know, the last 33 seasons Griff has been a part, there's only been one losing season.
One of my top 5 favorite memories of being a manager was we would make these dummy forts and we would make an opening in the front of it. And the cross-country players would run across the football field, and Juice and I would come out, and Cohen would too. We would get out and whip them with the smaller dummies that we could throw at them or hit them with. And I hit one of them in the nuts. I don't know who it was, but I just smoked him. I got in so much trouble from everybody, from Reimer and Griff. It was unreal.
I don't think you guys as much trouble as I did from pissing on Don Rogers' shoulder pads.
Yeah, that was a good one too. That was also fun. I didn't get in trouble, but I remember getting stick to the throat playing just football.
Did Bennett throw that?
Yes,
yeah,
Bennett threw that.
Going to the hospital?
Yeah.
Yeah, you almost died.
I had to put a towel in my mouth just so it would stop. So I was just sitting on the car ride home, just on my mouth. Yeah, actually, that was hilarious.
This is a wing tee where they run a lot anyway.
Well, I was just going to say, even with Tommy Reese,
There's a break in the open field. It's been now. Will they catch it? Inside the 20, inside the 10. Finally brought down by Jake Green.
Just so fortunate to have the coaches I had coach with me. I mean, I was like the conductor, you know, and Griff runs the offense, and Rhymes runs the defense, and Strasser and Messner ran the special teams, and then I had, Dave McGee coaching the JVs. I had Mike Tully doing the junior high. I was just blessed to have all these great coaches that, Griff is, took the torch and ran with it, and we've been pretty damn good.
Played football for a long time through this town, and Constantine really means a lot to me. Coming up from flag, always looking at the varsity guys coming out and helping out on the field and everything. It's a big thing to look up to. It was amazing seeing all my relatives, a whole bunch of friends going through this system and coming out to be a better man than what they came into the system as. And I'm honestly hoping that the next people coming up, all the Rocket football players, middle schools, JVs come up and just learn something from this sport, from Constantine, that it's not just a sport, it's something to help you grow as a person.
Former players and certainly people that have had things to do with our program, we enjoy this.
It's great seeing you.
Appreciate everything you guys do for this football program, and make sure you have a safe trip home. All right, thanks guys and ladies.
One of the biggest honors in my life was they got me a guest pass in 2004, and I got to be coach on the sidelines. See, the kids that I had, I started with in middle school. And I taught them that hard work pays big dividends. And I never want you, I started with middle school track, and I said, I want you all to know, there's a promise I'm going to make to you. No kid will ever beat you because he knows more about what he's trying to do than you. No kid will ever beat you because he's in better shape than you or worked harder than you. I promise you that. If you lose a race, it's because that kid was superior to you athletically. I cannot make you what you're not. And those were my kids. I didn't have a daughter until I was 40. We were told we couldn't have any kids. And teachers used to come to me because I tell them, I said, if you're having problems with any of my athletes, you come and see me right away and I'm going to put a stop to it. We're going to figure this out right now. And they would come to me and go, do you know what your kid today did today? Or you know what your kid today? And I used to tell the kids, I said, I wear that as a badge of honor. Thank you. They're my kids. Sorry.
No, you're okay, Coach. You're all good. You're all good.
For the Intercontinental Championship. 20 for another Constantine touchdown from 52 yards.
Great ball fakes. That's really, this is their running that offense to perfection. This is what it's all about.
Better on the defensive side of the ball with techniques and drills, and it's really paying off. Jim Shred, breaks free, and he's gone.